Robert Mitchum, the rebel who committed an unforgivable sin and survived. The Impossible Survival, August 31st, 1948. Los Angeles. Police raid a party. They arrest an actor. The charge? Marijuana possession. This should have been the end of a career. But 60 days later, the impossible happened. Robert Mitchum didn't just survive, he became a bigger star. And he did it using a strategy that no one today would dare to use. This isn't a story about a rebel. This is a story about a man who was once imprisoned in a chain gang during the Great Depression, who knocked out professional boxers to earn money, who went temporarily blind from stress, and who used those very scars to build an indestructible legend. How did a convicted criminal become the only man who made John Wayne say, "I don't want to tangle with that guy"? The answer isn't what you think. It's not about luck. It's not about Hollywood forgiveness. It's about something far more profound. Robert Mitchum didn't hide from his pain. He weaponized it. He turned every scar into armor that nothing could penetrate.
I don't feel that I terrify interviewers. They more or less terrify me. There's a lady present who...
The American morality. To understand why the 1948 arrest was an unforgivable sin, you need to understand where America was at that moment. In 1948, America had just won World War II. The country was seeking moral purity after the horrors of war. Hollywood was a propaganda tool. Stars weren't just actors, they were national symbols. Let me paint you a picture. If you were a female star and you gained 5 pounds, your studio could terminate your contract. If you were photographed at the wrong nightclub, your career could end. The studios had something called a morality clause that gave them absolute control. That same year, Ingrid Bergman had an affair with Italian director Roberto Rossellini. The scandal destroyed her American career overnight. She was denounced on the floor of the United States Senate. A senator called her a powerful influence for evil. She didn't return to Hollywood for 7 years. Fatty Arbuckle's career ended over a sex scandal in 1921, and 27 years later, his name was still synonymous with Hollywood depravity. And Robert Mitchum? He wasn't a rumor, he was caught red-handed with marijuana. In 1948, marijuana wasn't just illegal, it was considered a gateway to hell. One headline read, "Movieland's bad boy exposed as dope fiend." In an era when studios controlled everything, using marijuana wasn't just breaking the law, it was betraying American morals. RKO chose to fire him within 3 hours. And that's why what happened next rewrote Hollywood history. The night everything changed. The night of August 31st, 1948. Bel Air Canyon, 3 a.m. Police sirens tore through the Los Angeles sky. Police raided the home of Lila Leeds, a young starlet. In the living room, 4 people were smoking. One of them was Robert Mitchum, RKO Pictures' star, the leading man of Rachel and the Stranger, currently playing in theaters nationwide. But here's the strange part. The press arrived before the police even entered. Photographers were positioned outside, cameras ready. They captured Mitchum being handcuffed, head down, walking into the police car. The photos were perfectly framed, perfectly lit. One photographer later admitted, "We got a tip 30 minutes before the raid." 48 hours later, that photo was on the front page of every newspaper in America. The headline, "Hollywood star faces 6 years in prison." RKO Studios canceled Mitchum's contract immediately. Film critics declared his career over. Churches called for boycotts. His lawyer advised him to flee to Mexico. His friends told him to issue a public apology immediately. This was every studio's worst nightmare. The playbook said, apologize, beg for forgiveness, promise to reform. And what Mitchum did next shocked everyone. He went to sleep. That's right, while Hollywood panicked, while the press hunted, while RKO's lawyers tried to salvage the situation, Robert Mitchum went home and slept for 12 hours. When he woke up, his wife Dorothy asked, "What are you going to do?" Mitchum told her one sentence: "They can't take what they never had." That wasn't indifference. That was a strategy he'd been forging for 30 years. To understand that strategy, we have to go back to where it all began. The forging of armor. Robert Mitchum was born in 1917 in Bridgeport, Connecticut. When he was 18 months old, his father died in a railroad accident. His mother remarried. At age 12, Mitchum was sent to live with his grandparents. But this isn't a story about loss. This is a story about learning survival too early. At 14, Mitchum was expelled from school. The principal called his mother a loose woman. Mitchum walked into the principal's office and punched him in the face. He left home that same day. What happened next forged the man who could survive 1948. Mitchum became a hobo. He rode freight trains from Delaware to Georgia to Louisiana. He worked in coal mines where the dust filled your lungs. He worked on fishing boats 20 hours a day. He fought in bare-knuckle boxing matches where the last man standing got $5. At 16, he was arrested in Savannah, Georgia for vagrancy. The sentence? 30 days on a chain gang. 20 men chained together at the ankles, working from sunrise to sunset. Mitchum escaped after 7 days. He walked nearly 1,000 miles from Georgia to California, hiding in freight cars, eating scraps, drinking from streams. While Humphrey Bogart studied at acting academies, while Cary Grant trained at theater schools, Robert Mitchum studied at the University of the Streets. And what he learned wasn't in textbooks. When you've slept under bridges, you don't fear losing a mansion. When you've defended yourself in roadside bars, you don't fear press criticism. When you've survived the Great Depression without family or hope, you know Hollywood can't destroy you. In 1940, Mitchum married Dorothy Spence. They stayed together for 57 years until his death. Dorothy was the only person who knew who Mitchum really was. In 1946, before becoming famous, Mitchum worked 18 hours a day at the Lockheed factory to support his wife and 2 children. The pressure was so intense, he suffered a nervous breakdown. He went temporarily blind for 3 weeks. The doctor said, "Your body is shutting itself down to protect itself." This is what no one knew about Robert Mitchum. Those sleepy eyes everyone thought indicated laziness, they came from boxing injuries and chronic insomnia. The indifference everyone thought was contempt, it was the defense mechanism of someone who'd witnessed too much suffering. So when RKO canceled his contract in 1948, Mitchum didn't panic. He'd been through far worse. He knew something Hollywood didn't. Survival isn't about never falling down. It's about getting up more times than you fall. The silent strategy. Mitchum served 60 days at Castaic Honor Farm. Meanwhile, Hollywood prepared for his professional funeral. But what happened inside surprised everyone. Mitchum didn't complain, didn't write apology letters. He worked on the farm, played volleyball, read books. Reporters tried to interview him. Mitchum refused them all. One reporter shouted through the fence, "Mitchum, do you regret what you did?" Mitchum stopped, looked at him, and shouted back, "I regret getting caught." Then he went back to picking vegetables. RKO's lawyers drafted an apology statement. Mitchum refused to sign it. He said, "Because it's a lie. I didn't let down my country. I smoked a plant in someone's living room." This silence was strategy. Because Mitchum understood something the studios didn't. In an era when every star apologized, not apologizing was power. And as news spread, something strange happened. The public wasn't angry. They were curious. American housewives began writing letters defending him. World War II veterans said, "We killed people in war and came home to parades." This man smoked a plant, and you want to destroy him? Howard Hughes, RKO's new owner, realized something. This scandal wasn't a disaster. It was a marketing opportunity. He decided to continue Mitchum's contract. And on March 30th, 1949, Robert Mitchum walked out of the Castaic Honor Farm gates. A crowd of reporters waited. They wanted tears, desperation, a plea for redemption. Instead, they got 8 words that changed Hollywood forever. The 8 words. A reporter shoved a microphone in Mitchum's face. "Mr. Mitchum, do you have anything to say to the public?" The crowd went silent. This was the moment for apology. Mitchum looked straight into the camera and said, "I'm paying the price. That's all." Then he walked away. No apology, no explanation, no begging. 8 words. A declaration of war. Not against the public, but against a system that assumed stars would always kneel. Compare this to other scandals. Fatty Arbuckle apologized publicly. He was still blacklisted and died broke. Ingrid Bergman issued tearful apologies. She was exiled for 7 years. Charlie Chaplin was deported and never allowed back. Mitchum broke the rules. He'd paid his legal debt, and he owed nothing more to anyone. This was the first time a star told Hollywood, "I don't belong to you. I belong to myself." And the miracle? The public respected that. The Los Angeles Times, which had called for his boycott, now ran an editorial titled, "The Integrity of Indifference." Letters shifted from condemnation to support. When the big steal opened the next month, revenue was 40% higher than predicted. Audiences didn't boycott him. They lined up to see the man who refused to apologize. Because in an era when everything was polished and fake, Mitchum was the only one living authentically. From 1949 to 1997, Mitchum appeared in 125 films. He became one of the American Film Institute's 50 greatest legends. No other scandal could hurt him. He'd proven that when you don't build a false image, no one can destroy you. But the real story isn't about the scandal. It's about something we've forgotten. The real rebellion. For 75 years, we've been wrong about Mitchum. We thought he was a rebel. Wrong. We thought he didn't care. Wrong. We thought he was lucky to survive. Wrong. The truth? Mitchum wasn't the rebel. He was the only normal one. Hollywood, with its fake rules, its polished PR machine, forcing actors to pretend to be perfect, was the abnormal one. Think about it. Who's really abnormal? A man who worked hard to support his family? Or a system that forced him to pretend to be perfect? A man who experienced real life, poverty, prison, or actors who played tough guys while living in mansions? People loved Bogart because he smoked beautifully. They respected Cagney because he danced beautifully. They feared Mitchum because he was real. When asked about his acting method, Mitchum said, "I've got 2 acting styles, with a horse or without a horse." When asked about acting lessons, going to acting school is like going to school to learn to be tall. This wasn't arrogance. This was honesty about a profession too many people had turned into a religion. Mitchum didn't fight Hollywood. He simply refused to participate in their theater. And that's why he won. Because ultimately, we're all tired of the fakeness. Tired of perfect Instagram photos. Tired of apologies written by PR teams. Tired of celebrities pretending to care about social issues just to sell products. Robert Mitchum is a reminder that authenticity isn't a marketing strategy. It's a way of life. The setup theory. But there's one strange detail. The 1948 arrest was too perfect. The press arrived before the police. Photographers were ready. RKO canceled his contract in 3 hours. Some Hollywood historians believe this wasn't an accident. This was a setup. In 1948, Congressman Richard Nixon was hunting communist sympathizers in Hollywood. Mitchum had participated in labor protests. He'd spoken out against the studio system. Was the arrest a way to silence a star who was too dangerous? We'll never know for certain. But one thing is sure. If this was a trap, Hollywood failed miserably. Because Mitchum didn't go silent, he became more dangerous. Not because he was a rebel, but because he proved that an actor doesn't need Hollywood. Hollywood needs actors. And this lesson inspired the next generation. Marlon Brando, James Dean, Steve McQueen. They all learn from the Mitchum template. Live authentically. Don't ask permission. Don't apologize. The Father's Regret. In 1995, 2 years before lung cancer took his life, a reporter asked Mitchum, "After 50 years in Hollywood, what's your biggest regret?" The man who'd never feared anything in the world cried, "I regret not spending more time with my children. I was busy making money so they wouldn't have to go through what I went through. But they went through something worse. They went through life without a father who was really there." He continued, "I was so scared of them being poor like I was that I worked all the time. Every movie I took. It was security, but I missed everything. First days of school, birthday parties, Little League games. My son Chris wrote a book. There's a line in it that killed me. He wrote, 'My father was gone so much, I used to watch his movies just to remember what he looked like.' And this is the moment we all understood. The bad boy wasn't rebelling, he was running. Running from memories of being 14 and starving on a train. Running from the fear his children would sleep under bridges. Running from the helpless feeling of a father who couldn't protect his family. This is the pain of an entire generation of American men born during the Great Depression. They worked ceaselessly, not from greed, but from terror. They sacrificed everything for their families, except their very presence. Robert Mitchum worked until he went blind. He accepted every role to pay for his children's education. He maintained a 57-year marriage. But at the end of his life, he didn't remember the films. He remembered the dinners he missed, his son's baseball games he couldn't attend, the birthdays when he was filming somewhere far away. And this is a pain no money or fame can heal. The pain of having to choose between staying home and working to give them a future. If you're a father listening to this, you understand that feeling. The feeling when you work yourself to exhaustion, not because you love the work, but because you love your family. The feeling when your absence is the price for their presence in the future. Mitchum wasn't a rebel. He was a survivor. And survivors never stop fighting, even when the war is over. The Legacy of Authenticity. Robert Mitchum died on July 1st, 1997, at age 79. He passed away in his sleep at his home in Santa Barbara, California. No major scandal, no last-minute drama, no deathbed confession. Just a man who lived his way until his last breath. The American Film Institute ranked Mitchum number 23 on its list of greatest screen legends. Not because he was the most well-behaved, but because he was the most authentic. In an era when every star has PR scripts, image management teams, and social media managers, Mitchum's story is a reminder of a different time. A time when authenticity wasn't a marketing strategy, it was a way of life. The final question isn't why did Mitchum survive, but rather, why couldn't the others? Perhaps because they built images that were too perfect, and perfect things are always the most fragile. Mitchum never built an image, he simply was himself, and that self couldn't be destroyed. Being authentic means accepting that some people will hate you. It means losing opportunities. It means being alone sometimes. But it also means building a life on a foundation that can't be shaken by scandal or criticism, because you never claimed to be perfect in the first place. Most people can't do that. They need approval too much, so they build a false image and spend their lives terrified someone will see through it. Mitchum never had that fear, not because he was brave, but because he'd already lost everything once. That's his legacy. Not the movies, not the scandal, but the reminder that authenticity isn't a marketing strategy, it's a way of life. If you grew up watching Mitchum's films, or if this story reminds you of a time when authenticity mattered more than follower counts, leave a comment about your favorite Mitchum film. This is Age of Vintage Society, where we honor values that never go out of style. Robert Mitchum stood for the simple, radical idea that you don't owe the world a performance. You don't owe them perfection. You don't owe them an apology for being human. You only owe yourself one thing: the courage to be exactly who you are. That was Mitchum's unforgivable sin, and it's the reason he survived.